What's happening all is the 19th of July. I'm not at the normal recording spot, and I'm also not in my office. Office is under a lot of work right now. So things haven't get fixed. So we got stuff everywhere. Can't record there, plus it's too dang noisy. So you've got this really dimly lit spot that I'm in. So apologize for the lighting, but then again, we got to make the video somehow, right? So where are we at? New information continues to keep on. It's not really new information. It's continued information about the jobs. Jobs continue to keep just getting hammered. We're looking at jobless claims up this last week, continuing claims still going up. People are not able to work to the extent that of course, people would hope to. You've also got Powell has been saying several times that's going to be the driving force for any sort of rate cut. So those who are hoping for a rate cut, that might be it. But here's the thing: cutting rates, dropping things down, making things cheaper. If it's going to on some basis, right? We're going to see some things decline. Well, that could also start sparking economic activity, start pushing things up a little bit, and then we start seeing inflation. We also talked about, since our current consensus is Donald Trump will be the next president, that's also one of these things that is considered by many could be inflationary because of economically, people start their industry could be cranking a little bit more, bring some things back into the United States, especially energy. That also can push things up a bit, put people buying more, people hiring more, could reverse some of the job situation. What is that going to do to inflation? So inflation is really an interesting spot. We'll see how that all plays out. Again, I don't know about more than one rate cut this year, if we get one at all. If somebody surveyed Aaron Chapman, said, hey, you need to go sit down with Jerome Powell, he wants your opinion on it, he wants to know what you would do, I'd be like, do one more freaking hike and then hold it for a bit. That's just my personal thought process. I know it's probably not going to be well received by a lot of people, but we got too out of hand when it came to inflation with respect to what the federal government did with the funds they're receiving, the tax dollars they took and put to work and then threw it into the market. I don't know if quantitative easing was the best thing we could have ever done. Using that to try and keep the economy going when it should have just slowed the hell down and recovered on its own instead of having all that stimulus. Now we're paying the price of stimulus. And what does that price look like? Let's take a look at a couple of things here. I've been looking at some stuff with respect to like the national debt. Massive debt. Look at this, where we were in the 60s and the 80s. Then you start getting into the 90s, get into the 2000s, the stuff kept climbing. But man, you hit 2008 after the market crash. Look at this. The federal government just slammed money in there. And by doing that, creating that capital and throwing it, just created so much debt. Where does that put us as far as a country, as far as our debt spending, right? Well, this is, the federal government has total revenue of 4.4 trillion, according to this chart in 2023, but its outlays, the expenses, is 6.1 trillion. Right? I mean, damn, that's 50% over. Nearly 50% over. We're spending 50% more than what we're taking in. That's insanity. Look at this, the federal budget. Look at the spending above tax collections. What comes in to be able to use to run the country and what goes out. Oh, look what happened after 2020, 2019. This is the COVID. This is all that area. We're still keeping a pretty big gap. Income's going down, expenses are going up. Think about all the places money is being spent right now. So when you start putting yourself in that position, you kind of wonder, me as a lender, would I loan money to the federal government to buy a house? Probably not. They're spending that much more than what they're taking in, 50% more than what you're taking in. If you're making $100,000 a year, you're spending 150. It's not a matter of debt and what your debt payments are. It's a matter of what's actually leaving. You're able to run debt to operate. It's not a solid fiscal policy, if you ask me. Before we out in the mortgage-backed securities, let's take a peek at this. This is the 6.5 coupon. So what I did is I put this upward channel that has been talked about as I go over an upward movement, and look at where our trajectory is. Bam, right into that level that I believe is where we landed. I don't have that. I can't go back to 2008 on the 6.5, but this seems about right. That this is our level. This would be equivalent to where they announced quantitative easing back in 2008. We're right there on a crash course with that, and we had a significant turnaround. as we're approaching that. And look at this, we're at a negative stochastic crossover, meaning when we start heading down here, we got this key level. This level we've been talking about kept bouncing off of. It was a very, very strong level. We're going to hit that. We're either going to bounce off of it and come up, which would be right at the intersection of this channel, or we're going to break through and go below it. But if we go below it, we have a lot of moving averages that are our supports. That's what a lot of traders are going to look at as use that as indicators as to whether or not they're going to buy or they're going to sell. That's, however they believe they're going to make money at that time. Here's those downward channels that we've been following. This, again, is still the 6.5 downward channels. We're quite a ways away from that downward channel. So it could be in all these moving averages as our support. Here is here's the 5.5. I spent a lot of time looking at this because of other things that I'm working on. Again, heading back to this critical line. We watched this line a lot. What I found interesting, this is the most interesting chart of all of them. This is that prediction that we laid out in February of this year with myself and Sean, who is the professional trader. And he lined out all these lines for specific things. These are the targets where it's going to bounce off of, eventually get down to here. And this will be the final target where it reverses and comes back up from there. So we still believe the final target's down here at some point as far as the decline in value, a jump in interest rates that will push the average interest rate for your homeowner somewhere right around 7.5 to 7.6. The average investor into the 8s with points. It should be double digits, but they're never going to put us in that point. But look at this order block that he placed right here. This is where he said a lot of money sitting there waiting. But look, we bounced off of that. We bounced off of it again. We literally hit that order block this last week, and we have not really penetrated that order block. And we've come off of it. And because of those stochastic charts that we saw in the last, we're in an oversold position. Therefore, we're reversing, and we're going into an oversold position, possibly going back down. If we go back down and get out of that channel, who knows where it's heading. So those are just some thoughts. I think we definitely are stifled at going up. A couple things. One, the order block that Sean laid out, because he says there's money sitting there waiting to be able to, or at least orders sitting there waiting to push that down. Other is that yellow line that I placed, which is the market's value of the security without any external influence like quantitative easing. Quantitative easing was an enormous amount of capital coming in for the federal government. So I believe we're about peaked out. That's my belief. Now, it could be with other economic stuff that comes out. Could be more money flood in because of where CPI is heading to that effect. But I don't know that we're going to get any better than that yellow line that I'm referencing there, because every time we've hit that with all great news, we've bounced right off it. That right there is a very, very strong ceiling. A lot of traders not willing to go there because they don't believe the value is there. That's just my thoughts. I could be completely freaking wrong, right? I'm a mortgage guy. I'm not sitting on Wall Street. I'm having the conversations after hours with a scotch and a Cohiba discussing how this is going to go or what things we're going to manipulate. All I can tell you is what I see. So have yourselves a very good weekend, and I will talk to you guys on Tuesday.